Hello and welcome. Tonight we're taking a deep dive into a country that's as mysterious as it is, shall we say, unique in its governance. Yes, folks, we're talking about North Korea, a land where the phrase that's against the rules takes on a whole new and frankly terrifying meaning. Now we know what you're thinking. John, why North Korea? It's a Tuesday. Can't we just dissect the latest political gaffe or marvel at the absurdity of a pigeon wearing a tiny cowboy hat? And to that we say, look, we appreciate a good bird in a hat as much as the next guy, but North Korea's got layers of authoritarian control that'll make your eyebrows climb higher than a Dennis Rodman jump shot. We're talking about restrictions so utterly bizarre, so mind-bogglingly specific, that you'll wonder if the rule book was written by a team of bored supervillains on a particularly slow Tuesday, and that, my friends, is what we're here to unpack. Over the next few chapters, we're going to peel back the layers of North Korean life, exposing the shocking realities faced by its citizens on a daily basis. So buckle up, grab your emergency stash of snacks. We recommend something with a long shelf life, in case this whole thing takes a turn. And prepare to have your mind officially blown. This is North Korea, as you've never seen it before, and quite frankly, as they probably wouldn't want you to see it at all. Alright, let's kick things off with something near and dear to all of our hearts: television. That magical box of entertainment where dreams are made, reality shows run rampant, and infomercials prey on the weak and the sleep-deprived. But in North Korea, the concept of channel surfing takes on a rather, shall we say, limited meaning. Because guess what, folks? They've got a grand total of three television channels. And no, this isn't some quaint throwback to the days of rabbit ears and fuzzy reception. This, my friends, is state-controlled television at its finest, where every newscast, every program, every single minute of airtime is meticulously curated by the government. Imagine, if you will, a world where your viewing options consist of A. Glorified infomercials praising the supreme leader's every move, B. Patriotic sing-alongs that would make a statue blush, and C. Black and white documentaries about the joys of agricultural labor. Riveting, isn't it? And before you even think about switching to that dusty old VHS player in the attic, let me stop you right there. Owning unauthorized media, whether it's a smuggled Hollywood blockbuster or a bootleg copy of Friends, is a one-way ticket to a very unpleasant place. And trust me, you don't want to end up on the wrong side of a North Korean prison. Alright, we've covered the joys of state-controlled television and the non-existent world of the internet in North Korea. Now let's move on to something more existentially terrifying. The 3 generations of punishment rule. In North Korea, if you commit a serious crime, not only you but your entire family, including parents and children, face punishment. It's like a twisted family reunion where the main event is a one-way ticket to a labor camp. Crimes like speaking ill of the government or possessing unauthorized media can lead to this. It's a very real and terrifying tactic used to instill fear and obedience within the population. For North Koreans, it's a daily reality, a constant reminder of the state's control. Alright, let's talk about hair. Specifically the hair of every single person living in North Korea. You see, in the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, your follicles aren't your own. They're practically government property. Forget about expressing your individuality with a mohawk, or experimenting with some questionable bangs. The North Korean government, in its infinite wisdom, has pre-approved exactly 28 hairstyles for its citizens. That's right, 28. Now you might be thinking, 28 isn't so bad, there's gotta be some variety in there. Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because those 28 styles are essentially just slight variations on the same theme. Short and sensible for men, shoulder length, and even more sensible for women. And God forbid you even think about rocking a spiked hairdo. Apparently, in the eyes of the supreme leader, a little bit of hair gel is a one-way ticket to a re-education camp. It's practically considered an act of treason. Now, we've all had those moments where we've walked out of a salon and immediately regretted our life choices. But imagine if that bad haircut could land you in hot water with the government. That's the reality for North Koreans. The government even released propaganda posters depicting the appropriate hairstyles, just in case anyone needed a little guidance. Because nothing says free and prosperous society like government-mandated haircuts. And if you think this is just some archaic rule that nobody actually enforces, think again. Hair inspectors roam the streets armed with scissors and a severe lack of a sense of humor, ready to give any unsuspecting citizen a forced trim if they deem their hair inappropriate. So, the next time you're complaining about a bad hair day, just remember the citizens of North Korea, who literally risk their freedom for a little bit of self-expression. It really puts things in perspective, doesn't it? Alright folks, let's talk about basketball. No, not the NBA with its high-flying dunks and multi-million-dollar contracts. We're talking about North Korean basketball, where the rules are about as predictable as Dennis Rodman's diplomatic missions. You see, in the DPRK, they like to do things a little differently. Take scoring, for example. In regular basketball, a slam dunk gets you 2 points. Exciting, right? Well, hold on to your hats, folks, because in North Korea, a slam dunk is worth a whopping 3 points. That's right, they've essentially turned basketball into a game of anything you can do. We can do weirder. It's like they took a perfectly normal sport and ran it through a North Korean propaganda machine. But wait, there's more. Remember those nail-biting final minutes of a basketball game where every point counts? Well, in North Korea, they've decided to crank up the tension to 11. In the last 3 minutes of the game, any field goal, not just a dunk, is worth a mind-boggling 8 points. That's right, 8. It's like they're actively trying to induce heart attacks in their spectators. And if you thought that was wild, just wait until you hear about free throws. In North Korea, missing 3 free throws results in a point deduction for your team. That's right. Not only do you not get any points for missing, but you actually lose a point. It's almost as if they're trying to make the game as confusing and illogical as possible. But hey, at least it's entertaining in a what the hell is going on kind of way. Welcome to Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, and the country's shining beacon of, well, something. It's a city of wide boulevards, towering monuments, and an eerie lack of traffic. Pyongyang is North Korea's carefully curated showpiece, a meticulously constructed illusion of prosperity and progress. But behind the facade of gleaming skyscrapers and perfectly manicured parks lies a harsh reality. Pyongyang is a city reserved for the elite, the loyal, and the downright lucky. You see, in North Korea, simply living in the capital city isn't a right, it's a privilege, one that's tightly controlled by the government. Forget about just packing up your bags and moving to Pyongyang to chase your dreams. You need permission, and not just from any bureaucrat. We're talking top-level government-issued Kim Jong-un approved permission. So how does one get this coveted permission slip to Pyongyang? Well, it's not easy. In fact, it's about as likely as finding a decent bagel in the DPRK. You need to be among the most successful, the most loyal, and of course the most wealthy of North Korean citizens. Think of it like a real-life version of the Hunger Games, but instead of fighting to the death, you're competing for the chance to live in a city where the electricity works most of the time. And if you're thinking about sneaking into Pyongyang, think again. The city is heavily guarded with checkpoints at every entrance and surveillance cameras watching your every move. It's like trying to sneak into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but instead of delicious candy, you're met with the constant threat of imprisonment. So if you ever find yourself with an all-expenses-paid trip to Pyongyang, consider yourself one of the lucky ones. Just don't expect to see any real North Koreans living their best lives, because in Pyongyang, the only life you're allowed to live is the one the government wants you to see. Imagine this. You've just managed to scrape together enough money to buy your kid a new backpack for school. They're excited, you're feeling good, and then, bam! The school hits you with a note. Dear parents, please also provide a desk, chair, and several bricks for the new school kiln. In North Korea, basic school supplies aren't just limited to pencils and notebooks. Parents are expected to provide desks, chairs, and even contribute to building materials. It's like the PTA meeting from hell, where everyone's chipping in for a new roof instead of bake sale cookies. And don't even think about sending little Jinsu to school with that slightly wobbly chair from your grandma's attic. These materials are inspected because obviously a wonky chair leg could be a sign of subversive tendencies. This whole system just highlights the stark reality for North Korean families. They're struggling to put food on the table, and then they're hit with these extra burdens, all under the guise of contributing to their children's education. It's enough to make you want to bang your head against a poorly constructed school desk. Sure, technically. But what's the point of free education when the curriculum is about as unbiased as a Fox News segment on, well, anything really? From the moment they step foot in a classroom, North Korean children are bombarded with propaganda. They're taught to revere the Kim dynasty, with Kim Il-sung's achievements taking center stage. Imagine a history lesson where the hero always wears platform shoes and has a questionable haircut. That's North Korean history class in a nutshell, and don't even get me started on the subject of America. Forget about learning about jazz music or the civil rights movement. These kids are taught that the US is a villainous empire hell-bent on destroying their glorious nation. It's like Red Dawn but with more propaganda posters and significantly less Patrick Swayze. So, while parents are busy sawing wood and gluing chair legs, their children are being fed a carefully curated version of reality designed to ensure unquestioning loyalty to the regime. It's brainwashing disguised as education, and it's just another example of how the North Korean government controls every aspect of its citizens' lives. Alright, let's talk about religion in North Korea, or rather, the distinct lack thereof. You see, in the eyes of the Kim regime, there's only room for one true god, and spoiler alert, it's not the big guy upstairs, it's the guy with the bad haircut and a penchant for oversized sunglasses. The Bible, banned, churches, mostly destroyed or repurposed as propaganda centers. It's like they took the whole separation of church and state thing and decided to launch the church into the stratosphere on a poorly constructed rocket. But here's the thing, suppressing religion is like trying to squash a jelly donut. You might get rid of the most obvious bits, but the gooey center always finds a way to seep out. Despite the risks, underground churches exist, with people risking their lives to practice their faith in secret. Imagine attending a church service where the hymns are whispered and the communion wine comes in a nondescript water bottle. That's the reality for many North Korean Christians. Now, while organized religion is a big no-no, the North Korean government isn't completely against the idea of spirituality. In fact, they've got their own homegrown version, a delightful little cocktail of Confucianism, Korean shamanism, and a hefty dose of personality cult worship centered around, you guessed it, the Kim family. This state-sanctioned belief system, known as Juche, emphasizes self-reliance and national unity, conveniently placing the Kim dynasty as the ultimate embodiment of these ideals. It's like they took all the parts of religion they didn't like, free thought, questioning authority, and that whole pesky love thy neighbor bit, and replaced it with a healthy dose of obey the dear leader. So you can forget about midnight mass or lighting a Hanukkah candle without risking a visit from the secret police. In North Korea, the only acceptable form of worship is directed at the glowing portraits of the Kim family, which, coincidentally, seem to be everywhere you look. You know, just a subtle reminder of who the real deities are in this workers' paradise. Alright, let's talk about technology in North Korea, or rather, the distinct lack of it. You see, while the rest of the world is busy tweeting about their breakfast and arguing about the latest iPhone release, North Korea marches to the beat of its own dial-up modem. Forget about scrolling through Instagram or binge-watching Netflix in North Korea. The internet, as we know it, basically doesn't exist. It's like trying to find a decent bagel in a city that only sells white bread. Sure, technically it's bread, but it's just not the same, is it? Instead, North Koreans have access to a heavily censored intranet called Kwangmyong, which is basically the internet equivalent of a library where all the books are about the glorious achievements of the Kim dynasty. You might find a recipe for kimchi, but good luck finding out what's actually happening in the outside world. Now you might be thinking, well, at least they can listen to music, right? Sure, if you consider propaganda anthems and military marches the pinnacle of musical achievement, owning a CD of Western music or, God forbid, a smuggled copy of The Fast and the Furious on DVD is a one-way ticket to a labor camp. Imagine living in a world where the Beatles are considered subversive, and listening to Lady Gaga could get you thrown in jail. It's like a dystopian nightmare dreamt up by a tone-deaf dictator who thinks YMCA is a song about the joys of collective farming. This digital lockdown is all about control. By limiting access to information and entertainment, the regime can maintain its grip on power and ensure that its citizens remain blissfully unaware of the world beyond their borders. It's like living in a giant, heavily guarded echo chamber where the only sounds you hear are the carefully curated pronouncements of the dear leader. And let me tell you, that's a playlist that would make even the most hardcore Kenny G fan beg for mercy. Alright, let's talk about staying connected. In North Korea, even picking up the phone is a dangerous game. Making an international call is illegal and can have severe consequences. In 2007, a man was executed for making several international calls. The government claims this prevents dangerous information spread. But it's really about control, keeping citizens in the dark. Imagine living where calling a loved one could cost your life. Many North Koreans don't know how unusual this is. They've grown up with tightly controlled information. It's a form of mental imprisonment. The government controls all communication. They even blast propaganda through loudspeakers. Next time you call someone, think of North Koreans. For them, a simple call is an act of defiance. Okay, let's move on to another rule that's, well, let's just say it's a bit of a head-scratcher. You know how sometimes you're in a meeting and it's just dragging on and your eyelids start to feel a little heavy? Yeah, well, in North Korea that could literally be a fatal mistake. Falling asleep during one of Kim Jong-un's speeches is considered a serious offense. A sign of disrespect so egregious it can be punished by death. In 2015, Defense Minister Hyun Yong-chol nodded off during an event. He was reportedly executed with an anti-aircraft gun. So next time you're tempted to nap during a meeting, remember Hyun Yong-chol. You might find yourself suddenly feeling a lot more alert. And there you have it, some of the most shocking restrictions that North Koreans have to live with. It's a stark reminder that while we might complain about our internet being slow or our coffee being cold, there are people out there living under constant surveillance, denied basic freedoms that most of us take for granted. If you found this video informative, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content. And the next time you feel like complaining about something trivial, just remember it could always be worse. You could be living in North Korea. See you in the next video.